Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, and welcome to Command Power, the show where we discuss all things Magic the Gathering with a focus on Commander. And today we are doing a brand new deck tech from one of the new commanders from Dominaria United. It is Ivy, Gleeful Spellthief, and I'm super psyched for this one. This is a really fun deck, and I can't wait to share it with you. Before we start, let's quickly go over what Ivy does. She's a legendary creature for green and blue. She's a fairy rogue, a 2/1 flyer, and whenever a player casts a spell that targets only a single creature other than Ivy, Gleeful Spellthief, you may copy that spell. The copy targets Ivy. So this opens us up to all sorts of opportunities. It lets us build a Spellslinger deck, it lets us build a Voltron deck, it lets us build an Aura-based deck, it could let us build a Bestow-based deck or a Mutate-based deck. All of these things work pretty well, but we are going to focus on one of them. We are mostly building Ivy in a slightly Voltron way, with a focus on auras. So we're going to be able to double up on that unique ability to get copies of auras that enter as permanents, of course. So we're getting to copy permanents for free. That is super strong. So without further ado, let's start discussing the other cards in the deck other than Ivy. And we're going to start with the creatures. The first creature we're going to talk about is Boon Satyr. So we have a Bestow theme in this deck. I used to play a lot during Theros Standard. A lot of the Bestow creatures weren't quite good enough there. Boon Satyr was one of the ones that was. And in this deck, it's going to be pulling in a lot of work. We're going to bestow it onto another creature, and then Ivy is going to get a copy. If either of them die at any point, we're going to get a free 4/2 out of it. The fact that it has flash lets us hold mana up and do it at end of turn to get more value, or to protect against damage-based removal, which is always nice to be able to do. Next up, we have Cold-Eyed Selkie. This is one of the targets for all of our auras. This one is going to be really good when it sneaks through. There's almost always going to be somebody playing islands, and when there is, you're going to be able to get in with this Cold-Eyed Selkie. Imagine she just has Boon Satyr on her. That's already 5 cards that you're drawing off of this. This is going to get out of hand really quickly, and they're going to have to deal with her, but luckily the deck comes with a lot of protection, so it should be okay. Destiny Spinner is just a great card for enchantment decks in general. It's going to stop your enchantments from getting countered, which is nice if there's a lot of blue in your meta, and it's also a finisher because late game when we have a ton of mana, we can just start making really big elementals to smash in along with our IV. Eidolon of Blossoms is perfect in this strategy because it's going to draw a card when it enters itself, and all those copies of auras that we're going to be getting are going to be triggering the Eidolon as well. So in fact, we're going to be drawing 2 cards for each aura we play. That is pretty good when you're getting a free divination with every aura. Elvish Mystic is just a nice little ramper. In this deck in particular, having a creature instead of a ramp spell is good because we can eventually bestow stuff onto it if we need to, or play auras on it. Eutropia, the Twice Favored. Now this is a really good constellation card. There's quite a few of those in the deck. And this one in particular is going to put a +1/+1 counter and give a creature flying until end of turn. So that's nice because it permanently grows our Ivy, and it permanently grows any other creature we want to too. It's going to trigger twice with each aura, which again is fantastic. It's also going to help push in damage against people who don't have flyers, so that's really nice too. Just a great card overall. Next up is Flitterstep Eidolon. So this can do 2 different things. We could play it early on to have a nice creature to suit up with Ivy, because remember, we want to have 2 things on board, Ivy and something else at least, so that we can suit up the other thing and Ivy gets the copies. This is really good at carrying auras because it can't be blocked. That's obviously very nice. But then late game, if we have the mana, we can just put it on something else with Bestow, and then Ivy's going to get +1/+1 and can't be blocked. That's going to end the game really quickly. If they deal with our creatures, then we just get an Eidolon, which we can start suiting up again. This is just very good at every stage in the game. Nullback Rhino. It's got trample, and whenever a spell targets it, you draw a card. This is obviously going to be really good because we're going to be targeting with a bunch of spells, and the fact that it comes in with trample by default is not to be overstated, since it helps push in the damage once it gets really big with auras. Herald of the Pantheon is good to make all of our enchantments cheaper, which we're going to be needing because we're going to try to cast multiple of them a turn, and it also gives us a little bit of life gain, which is always nice in Voltron strategies because you're probably going to be hit on the clapback a lot because people might feel that the only way to beat you sometimes is to outrace you. So just getting a life from every enchantment is nice. Unfortunately, it's not constellation, so the copies are not going to gain you a life, but you can't have everything. Next up is Invisible Stalker. Not much to say here, just one of the best creatures ever for carrying equipment and auras. This is going to be really good if you have it out with Ivy because it's going to be a source of damage that can't be prevented. Kadama of the West Tree is one that you can substitute if you don't have it. I just wanted to try it out in this list, but you could easily put in another piece of removal or ramp for it. I think it's nice because it's going to give trample to at least 2 of our creatures, and whenever one of those creatures deals combat damage to a player, we're going to search for a basic land. Now, we're almost always going to have 2 of those at least, so this is going to be pretty nice. Leaf Crowned Ride is another good bestow card. Not much to say here. We're basically just playing it for the stats. Seeing as 4 mana for +2/+2 and reach is pretty decent, and the fact that it becomes a creature if the creature it's enchanted to dies is pretty nice. Llanowar Elves, just another ramp card. Same thing applies as with Elvish Mystic. Maleficus Astronomer is an interesting one. It has Heroic. There's a couple of Heroic cards in here too. And whenever you cast a spell that targets it, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal an enchantment card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So including our pure enchantments and our enchantment creatures, that gives us about 1/3 of the deck that are enchantments, which means this should hit most of the time. If it hits, great. If it doesn't, well, we're digging 3 deep for an enchantment, so it's not too bad either way. It's just a nice one to have, and it's good to suit up as well. We want to have multiple creatures that are good to be targeted by auras, and this is just one of them. Nessian Wanderer is a constellation card, and it's going to let us get some lands and also filter through our deck. So this one is nice. Whenever an enchantment comes into play, we're going to get the trigger. So because of all our auras copying, then we're going to get 2 triggers off of this each time, basically guaranteeing we get a land and often 2 lands off of each enchantment we play. That's really nice. Nexus Wardens is a nice defensive card. We want to be gaining some life, as I've mentioned in this deck, and this is going to get us 4 life per aura we play. That's a pretty decent amount and should be able to keep us alive in races. Nylea's Colossus is a really good one. It's one of the top end cards in the deck because we don't have many things that are that expensive, and when it or another enchantment comes into play under your control, double target creature's power and toughness until end of turn. So you can have some absolutely explosive plays out of this. Maybe your Ivy is just a 5/5 and you play Nylea's Colossus. Suddenly it's a 10/10. Now you just play a cheap aura, maybe Curiosity, and you're getting 2 more triggers. So suddenly Ivy is a 40/40. That's basically game in 1 attack. So this card can get wins out of absolutely nowhere. It's really deceptive, really strong as a finisher in the deck, and don't sleep on this. Sanctum Weaver is a sweet one. It's going to be adding a bunch of mana in this deck. Not much to say here, just a really good card in Enchantress decks. So Tessan Champion is going to draw us a card every time an enchantment comes into play. So again, it's going to draw us 2 cards off of every single aura we play, and it's going to get 2 counters on itself to boot. So it can be a legitimate threat in its own right in this deck, but it's also just going to keep the cards flowing. Now you may be asking why we aren't running more Enchantress effects, and the reason for that is because they don't really work that well with Ivy, because they mostly trigger on cast, and Ivy's going to be copying things, so Constellation effects are better. This and Eidolon of Blossoms are basically the best card draw for this deck. Slippery Bog Bonder is a little bit of protection for Ivy. We can just flash it in and give her a hexproof counter. Not much to see here. It also has hexproof itself, which makes it very good for carrying auras. So it kind of fills in 2 gaps for the deck. Storm Chaser Drake is a really good new one from Innistrad Crimson Vow. It's going to let us draw a card every time we target it with something. So this is really nice. It just makes it a great creature to carry auras alongside Ivy. Next up we have Thassa's Emissary. So it's another bestow creature. It's going to get +3/+3, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you're going to draw a card. So having a Curiosity effect is nice. Having it on 2 creatures is even nicer. This is a really nice stats boost and ability to boot. For 6 mana, that's pretty solid, and of course the usual thing applies. You can also play this for 4 mana, it's still going to be good. If they kill the creature as well, you just get this for free. So this deck has excellent protection against board wipes with these bestow cards and with the Umbras that we're going to talk about later. Triton Fortune Hunter is another good target to carry auras. Whenever you cast a spell that targets it, you're going to draw a card. So just another version of the Drake. A little bit less good because it costs 1 more mana and doesn't have flying, but still quite good. White Water Naiads is one of the main ways we close out the game. It's going to make a target creature unblockable, but because every time we play an aura we're getting 2 triggers, we're basically going to make 2 creatures unblockable. If we play more than 1 aura a turn, that's basically our team that's not going to be able to be blocked. So that's going to push through a bunch of damage late game. Very nice card. Ancestral Mask is key in the deck for closing out games. It's going to give +2/+2 to enchanted creature for each other enchantment on the battlefield. So sadly it wouldn't normally count itself, but because we get an extra copy of it, that kind of solves that problem right there. This is going to provide a huge stat boost, very easily being +10/+10. It's crucial as well that it counts other people's enchantments. This is going to make your creatures super huge, and you're going to get a copy of it, of course, because it's an aura, so it synergizes super well with the deck. This is perfect. Aqueous Form is a nice little 1-mana aura that's going to trigger all of our Constellation. It's going to make a creature unable to be blocked, and then we're going to get a nice little Scry 1 attached too, so this is very good. Bear Umbra is a sweet one, of course. It's going to give +2/+2 and untap all lands when we attack. Potent Armor is going to give us some nice protection against board wipes and spot removal, so that's really nice. Cartouche of Knowledge. When it enters the battlefield, it's going to draw a card, so copying this is going to draw us 2 cards. And then +1/+1 on flying is always good, having a nice little bit of evasion. Of course, Ivy already has flying, but the other creature might not, so it's great. Concord with the Kami is one I've been wanting to try out for a while. We're putting it in the deck. You can try it and see if it works well. If it doesn't, cut it for some interaction. But what it does is you can choose all 3 of these if you meet the requirements. We're almost always going to meet the enchanted creature requirement, so this is guaranteed to draw us an extra card every turn. That's pretty good. And then we're probably going to have a creature with a +1/+1 counter on it, because we have a lot of that in the deck. So we're going to get an extra counter. At that point, a counter and drawing a card every turn is probably pretty good already. And then very occasionally we're going to get a spirit, because we only have 1 equipment in the deck, but still it might occasionally come up. Just seems pretty good. Cradle of Safety is a really nice one. It has flash, so we can get all our synergies out of nowhere. And giving Hexproof at instant speed will often catch the opponents off guard when they go to try and kill one of our creatures. And then it just gives +1/+1, so it still sticks around and gives some value. Just really good in the deck. Curious Obsession is a Curiosity variant that also is going to give us +1/+1, so a stat boost is pretty good. The downside of sacrificing it if you didn't attack is not that meaningful, because we're almost always going to be swinging it. We're almost always going to have some decent attacks with all the unblockability and other things that we have going in this deck. Eel Umbra, just some nice protection, again with flash, so we can flash it in to survive a board wipe, we can flash it in to survive combat or a removal spell. Very nice. Indomitable Might is another flash one that can blow people out of nowhere. They probably feel they're safe after they've double or triple blocked your IV or whatever, and then you flash this in and boom, they're suddenly out of the game from commander damage. This can deal a ton of damage out of nowhere if people are not prepared for it. Curiosity is a staple in these kind of decks. Mantle of the Wolf is a really good one, because it's going to give +4/+4 to 2 creatures. That's +8/+8 for 4 mana. That's really good. And then if any of those creatures die, we're going to get 2 more wolf tokens, which means we're going to have the first creatures on the board if it's a border wipe. And it also means then we can enchant those creatures immediately once we recast IV. So just a very nice card and protection against removal and board wipes. Octopus Umbra is a really nice one. All the Umbra cards are very good in this deck, but this one is effectively giving IV +6/+7, which is very nice. And then also it gets to tap a creature when it attacks, so it can open up attacks sometimes. You're getting to tap 2 creatures, of course, because you're going to be attacking with 2 of these, so this is very sweet. Audio Thassa is going to put counters on both of our creatures, which is really good, and then when you sacrifice it, you're going to be drawing 2 cards, so this is a double divination for 2 mana, eventually. Slight delay, but you have enough ways to protect the creature that it should be able to go off. Raised by Wolves is another wolf card. This one is going to give us 2/2/2 green wolves when it enters the battlefield, but the pump is conditional on the amount of wolves you have. Since we're going to copy this, we're probably going to have 4 wolves, so it's going to give each creature +4/+4, so it's very similar to the other wolf card we saw earlier, although if they do remove the wolves, your creature gets less pump, so a little bit awkward in that sense. Next up is Rancor, just a staple in all enchantment decks. If the creature gets killed, it's going to go back to your hand, and that means you're going to be able to cast it again and double it again. Just very nice. Also, the Trample helps us push through some damage. Rhystic Study is really great in most decks, and in this enchantment themed deck, it's even better than normal. Rune of Might is going to draw us 2 cards when it comes in with Ivy on the battlefield, and both creatures are going to get +1/+1 and trample, so just a nice little stat boost and way to push damage through. Season of Growth is amazing in this deck, so anytime a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you're going to scry 1. We have quite a few creatures, that's going to trigger a few times. But then whenever you cast a spell that targets a creature you control, draw a card. That is most of our deck. So we're going to be drawing a lot of cards with this. Shielding Plaques is going to draw us a card when it enters the battlefield. So it's going to draw us 2 cards effectively with Ivy out. And then it's going to give Hexproof to both of our creatures, which is just great protection. Protection and card draw is exactly what we want from our auras in this deck, so this is a perfect fit. Snake Umbra is going to give us +1/+1. It's going to give us a little bit of removal and protection from Wrath, and then it's also a curiosity effect, so we're going to draw cards when our creatures deal damage. Fits perfectly. Traveler's Cloak is going to let us choose a land to land walk, so You look at whatever most people have on the table and you choose that, and you're also going to draw a card off it, so just fantastic again. Utopia Sprawl is just some nice ramp, and it's an enchantment, so it's going to hit all of our synergies. Same thing with Wild Growth. An offer you can't refuse is some really good protection. Our interaction being as cheap as possible is very important. This is going to let us deal with anything that's non-creature that tries to threaten our board for just 1 mana, and the downside of giving the opponent 2 treasure tokens is mostly negligible. Beast Within is just some nice removal. Counterspell is some nice interaction that can deal with anything the opponent throws at us. Cyclonic Rift, as we mentioned many times, is just a finisher. If you don't have this, you can replace it with any other sort of interaction. Silk Guard is some very sweet protection, so you can put a +1/+1 counter of each of up to X target creatures you control. However, for the most part, you probably don't want to play it for a big value of X, seeing as if you only target one thing, then Ivy's going to get the copy anyway. The really crucial part though is that auras, equipment, and modified creatures you control gain hexproof until end of turn. So this is protection not only for your creatures, but also for specific auras if that's what they're trying to do. So that's very nice to have. Slip Out the Back is a really good one to deal with board wipes. If for whatever reason you haven't drawn any of your other board wipe protection, then this is just a bit of redundancy. Your 2 creatures are going to come back the very next turn with all of the enchantments attached to them still, so that's going to be a headache for your opponents to deal with. Stubborn Denial is just going to be a hard counterspell for non-creature spells for the most part, because you're almost always going to have a creature with power 4 or greater, so it's really good protection in the deck. Swan Song is another good 1 mana counterspell that's going to protect our creatures. Outkey's really good in this deck, choosing enchantments. We're going to get a lot of mileage out of this. Helm of the Gods is really good as a finisher in this deck. It's going to give a huge stat boost to Ivy. Soul Ring is just very cheap ramp. Thought Vessel is nice in this deck because we do draw a bunch of cards. It's not essential. If we don't draw it, we're fine, but it's good to have. Farseek is just ramp. Kodama's Reach is just ramp. Bala Ged Recovery is a nice card to have in almost any green deck, and this is no exception. Glasspool Mimic is a really nice one in this deck because we can just copy some of our constellation creatures and then get extra triggers. It's really good copying Eidolon of Blossoms, for example. Fastwood Fortification is nice as a spell that has a single target. We can just get a nice little bit of value out of it, and occasionally it might let us blank some damage-based removal, although that's pretty unlikely. Colony Ambush is a nice little bit of removal. Our creatures are usually going to be so big that we're going to be able to deal with most of the other stuff with this. Lumbering Falls is okay if we're super desperate late game and we don't have much else going on. We can activate it, put some auras on it, and swing for lethal maybe if we're super desperate. Obviously we don't want to be doing this too much, but a manland is never bad to have. Reliquary Tower is going to let us keep our hand if we draw a bunch of cards, but again, if we don't draw it, it's not the biggest deal. We're fine just discarding down the hand size. And finally, Strip Mine is a little bit of land hate. If you don't have this, you can put in Tectonic Edge or Ghost Quarter or anything similar. We want to have a little bit of land removal because there are sometimes some problem lands that we want to be dealing with. And there you have it. That has been our Ivy Gleeful Spellthief deck tech. What did you think of this deck tech? Are there any cards you would like to add or a different way that you think you would build Ivy? Please let us know in the comment section below. I read every comment and respond to all of them. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click like and subscribe. I'm growing the channel and it really helps me right now. And until next time, take care.